Welcome to Accelerate Your Dental Practice, the show for dental professionals ready to grow smarter, faster, and stronger. Hosted by Michelle Affanato of Affinity Management Consulting and Malika Azargoon of Zar Dental Consulting. Each episode delivers practical strategies and expert advice to help you streamline operations, increase profitability, and reduce stress. Let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of Accelerate Your Dental Practice. Today, it's just Malika and I having kind of a no holds bar conversation about what is happening in dentistry, but also in the world. And I know that the listeners are going to relate to some of this stuff that we're going to talk about. So it's completely off the cuff. We haven't discussed anything. And I hope by the end of this, you all feel like you're not alone. Everybody is going through this. Everybody is feeling it with patients, with staff, the doctors, it's just everywhere. Even when you go to the grocery store, things are happening. So, here we go. We're just going to talk about it. And I want to start off with something that has kind of been bothering me for the past few years, right? I feel like I've been in dentistry for a very long time. Malika, you have too.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot. We have seen a lot happen in dentistry. And one of the things that I've been seeing, and I know there's podcast after podcast, there's webinars about staffing. And yes, we all know there's a hygiene shortage. People are having trouble retaining staff. It's just a different world. It's like the Wild West out there. But one of the things that has really been bothering me as a Gen Xer is just the way that the staff and the patients are talking to the doctors. I'm appalled when I hear the way that they're yelling at them almost as if they don't respect the doctor as the practice owner, as their boss, right? They feel like they're equals or above the doctor because maybe they know a little bit more about something, about insurance or about HR or something than the doctor does. So they feel like they can say something to the doctor or they can react in a certain way. So, for example, I had this client who had a hygienist who had worked for the practice for a very long time. Not the best hygienist, not the best employee, but we all know what it's like with hygienists out there right now. So we tolerate more than we typically would. Well, the hygienist seems to have a problem with every other employee in the office, even new people, right? She doesn't even know these people. And there started to be an altercation between the hygienist and the assistant. And the hygienist actually shoved the assistant. And the assistant was about to grab her stuff and walk out of the office. And the doctor was like, no, you're not going to be the one who's leaving right now. You're staying here. And went to have a conversation with the hygienist. Now, this hygienist is probably in her 50s, so she knows better. Starts screaming at the doctor in front of all the patients, operatories full of patients, waiting room full of patients, everything. Starts screaming at the doctor. Tells the doctor she's going to sue her, all of this stuff, and then leaves. This is a hygienist who leaves in the middle of the day with her next patient in the waiting room. Just leaves, doesn't care about anything. And I'm seeing stuff like this happen. And I don't know if it's burnout or what is going on with people, but I'm telling you, first of all, I would never speak to my parents that way. My dad would backhand me across the mouth for talking like that. But in a place of employment, and in front of patients, forget it if you don't get along with the doctor or the staff, but as a provider, a doctor, a hygienist, you have an obligation. And how unprofessional is that to do that so that all the patients in the office can hear? So it's just wild
Yeah,
out there right
yeah,
now.
and it's interesting that you're sharing it because I am seeing it so much more. And honestly, like you said, I reflect back to myself because 30 some years in dentistry, and I go back to my first job and how I treated my boss, and there was this respect line that was never crossed. Yes, did we joke? Did we have fun? Yes, but when I was asked to do something, I would get it done. I might have not 100% agreed with it, but it was not the place to argue. Maybe at a meeting I might have challenged it in a professional way, but not in front of a patient. Absolutely not. But what I'm seeing in meetings, that it gets out of control. I had a situation when I was observing a practice recently, and I was just honestly shocked at the way the clinical team was handing off to the front desk and in front of a patient questioning and challenging why the front desk was putting that patient on the schedule on the day that she didn't feel like seeing that patient in front of the patient. And I'm just like, is this really happening? And then when the individual walked away, the patient looked at the front desk and said, I just don't want to come on a day she's here. It's just, and to me, I'm trying to understand the why behind this. And Michelle, for me, I think I go as deep as the core values, the vision, all those like infrastructure wise of a practice. That is where it all starts. It's like, right, you have a, we're both moms. That structure comes in the beginning. If I didn't put some structure with my kids, they would disrespect me. If I said the first time they yelled at me or did something disrespectful, I didn't stop it. Like you said, if you know that with your dad because there was structure put in place. There was core values in your home that was followed. And the dental practice is no different from a home. And I think sadly, these doctors are so overwhelmed and trying to just stay afloat. And as we talked about is there's burnout that they're just like, oh, I see more of a fear right now of I can't lose her. I can't lose her. Just let it go. Don't challenge it. And it makes me sad. I think we really have to go back to the drawing board and be okay with potentially losing people versus disrespect, not only with the patient, because we're allowing the patients to disrespect us because the staff are.
Yes. Yes,
It's
absolutely.
those two are connected. It's like you're allowing your husband or wife to disrespect you. So what does your kids do? Your kids disrespect because they're seeing that in the home. Your practice
Yeah.
is your home, and the staff see you being disrespected by another staff member or by a patient or vice versa. A patient's gonna do it, a staff's gonna do it, and it's not gonna stop, and it's gonna continue to get toxic to the point that a lot of these dentists sadly are so burnt out they're like, Micah, don't even bring it up. It's not worth it because I just cannot deal with losing another staff member.
Yeah. And I have some doctors that I've been really talking to. Now, like my scope of consulting is startups and the younger practice owners, right? So people like 5 years or less who've been in industry, like they started a practice, they acquired a practice. And I have doctors already that are just like, Michelle, I'm so burnt out. Like, I can't do this anymore. The staff never shows up. They don't care. The patients are getting so frustrated because we're moving them around all the time because I don't have enough people here to see the patients. I'm so tired of the low reimbursements from insurance. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I understand where they're coming from. It's so frustrating. So I have more conversations with doctors about, like, hey, there's nothing wrong with scaling back. Now's the time. Like, if you're feeling like this, reevaluate your practice, reevaluate the type of dentistry you want to do, the type of patient you want to see, the type of insurance. If you start going at a network with insurance, right? Obviously, the goal is to retain patients. But even if you don't, you'd be seeing fewer patients, making more money, and you wouldn't need to have the staff. So you can get rid of some of those bad apples, the ones that, I say they're like the C minus team members. Like they're there, they show up, but they're not really providing to the growth and the production of the office. So like you can move on from some of them if you reevaluate things. And in some areas and in some instances with the doctors, like that's what makes the most sense. That's you don't
Yeah,
have to bring in 100 new patients every month. Like
yeah,
if you don't want to do that and you want some of your life back, you don't have to work 6 days a week. I have offices that are open, 3, 4 days a week, not even 8 to 5, like 7 to 3, and they're loving life. They know they have structure, the team is happy. It's not perfect, but they're loving life. And it's just all I can say, and I know I talked to you and some of our colleagues. I'm like, it's wild out there right now. Like what is happening is it's just wild.
and yeah, and it's it spills over into your home life. And it's
Yes.
like we talked about it's like I will openly say it's like I'll get clients that interact with me in ways that they've never interacted before, and I'm like, where's this coming from? And it's obviously because there's so much pressure on them in the practice, or or they're working more than they're supposed to because everyone's bandwagon is too so much. And I believe in dentistry really 4 days is I think is max. I think when you work
Yeah.
5 you're really pushing it and only can sustain it for long before it becomes overwhelming. So it's super important to be able to find that happy medium. And I get it, as you said, with your startups, some of that is that you have to work 4 or 5 days in the beginning. You potentially have associate job 2 days and maybe in your own practice 3 days. I get it, but you should have some goals. And I'm sure, Michelle, you work with them on this too, is yes, you can sustain that 3 days as an associate or 2 days as associate and vice versa as an owner. But eventually you're going to have to put your full core focus in your own practice. And how many days can you really do that without burnout?
Right. Right. So yeah, the burnout is real, and I feel it too. I feel it too because
Yeah.
you know me, I carry the weight of my clients' problems on my shoulders. So if they are having an issue, I want to help them. And so sometimes it carries over to me and like my thoughts at night and how am I going to help them get through this? And so I feel like it's not just a dentist that's feeling it or a hygienist or a staff. Like every single person is feeling this kind of thing right now, and everyone's like you said, you have clients that are interacting with you differently than they used to, right? And it's like, whoa, where did this come from? Before we got on to record, I was talking with a client and she was like, I was thinking of like hiring a life coach because I just don't know what I want to do. And then she goes, then I thought Michelle's kind of my life coach. And I was like, yeah, I kind of like play that different role for everybody, you know. But there are, you know, I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of, you know, research myself and webinars and looking at this because there's so much happening in dentistry, right? Like I think you were saying earlier, you know, all the changes that are happening. You know, right now there's that lawsuit from with Heartland about
Yeah.
like the recording of calls. And so, you know, we have to stay up on top of that so that we can let our clients know. And they expect us to know things like that. And so it's like we're constantly learning new
Yeah, and
things.
it's ever changing so much. It's crazy, especially with this AI. It's so much going on, and there's so many vendors, so many options, and what I say, social media groups are a blessing and a curse. Everybody paints a picture. Some will paint a picture like my practice is X, Y, and Z, and I opened only a year ago, and I'm collecting this much, and more power to them. But there's so many, as you know this as a startup, consultant too, like there's so many folds to that layer of success, location, marketing. And it's like, people will read it and someone might be struggling after 1 year and they're like, well, how is he or she doing so well? And I am not. And I'm sure you get phone calls like that. Like, how can I be
Yeah.
that person? I get it all the time. And I said, well, we don't know the full story of what happened. So that causes pressure because then it's social media where someone on social media says, I'm working with this vendor and now I heard about this vendor, and then this research goes towards that vendor. There's so much to like look for or look after that itself is quite overwhelming. Even as you said, you and I constantly have to be on our tippy toes to make sure we know what's coming out, what's changing, what are some challenges, so that we make sure that we can educate our practices to make sure that they're doing the right thing and they're set for success.
Yeah, it's the AI and the vendors and the software thing. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Every time I turn around, there's something new.
I know.
There's a new software like, and especially these cloud-based softwares like can American changes to their programs constantly. Like I have several clients on Curve and Archie and Oryx, and I have access to their systems, and every time I log in it's like, hey, here's a new release, watch this webinar so you know what's going on. And then of course, like in my inbox I get emails from like, okay, like Weave now offers this and Dental Intel now offers this. And it's like,
It's
how do you keep
crazy.
all of this stuff straight on top of like, you know, seeing your patients and managing your staff? And you know, something that I've come across a lot lately is having doctors, again, I am really big at don't hand the keys to the kingdom over if you're a doctor. I was an office manager. Malika's worked in dental offices. We've done it, and I've had doctors hand everything over to me. It's not the right thing to do because I'll tell you right now, I'm working with an office, and every time I work with them, my heart breaks. He trusted an office manager so much, and when I look in there, all I've done is make a couple changes in their software. He's already seeing an increase in revenue. Dentrix, for example. In Dentrix, if you put a fee schedule in that family file section where you put like their address, their phone number and stuff, if you put a fee schedule there, that overrides any fee schedule. This particular office manager attached a UCR 2023 fee schedule to everybody. And
Wow.
they're in network with Delta and Blue Cross. So it overrode the Delta and Blue Cross fee schedules, and it's 2025. So even though she increased her fees, the doctor's still charging everybody the 2023 fees.
Mm, mm.
And so after changing that, like, so a couple of things like for me that I've been noticing is encourage, make it part of their performance review, make it part of raises. I don't care that they don't need CE. Make your office manager, make your admin team take CE courses. Get updated on insurance, get updated on the software, all of these things, because they could be costing you a lot of money in your practice if you think because they've been doing it for 20 years that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's why I always say
Constantly.
those meetings are so important to have those meetings by department, by team. Get nosy in your software. Look in there, look at stuff because, as you said, look at like this practice has, I'm sure, lost so much money sadly because of incorrect fee schedule. Like that's such a simple fix that could have made such a difference a couple years ago. And it's just the lack of engagement in the business side again, which I
Mhm.
understand the why, because usually these doctors are so overwhelmed. But as you said, handing that key to your manager and just being like, okay, she's got it. No matter how good anybody is, we're all human. It's good to have a second eye and to make sure that, you're kind of like, okay, let me ask this question or let me look at my day sheet. I thought my crowns were 11.95. Why is this showing 8.90? Get curious.
Yeah.
And I always say, ask random questions. You just don't know. And sometimes just that question will get that person on their tippy toes to go back, fix things, or potentially for you to get more involved and realize, okay, you're manager, your billing coordinator is just not doing their job to help your practice thrive.
Yeah. I feel like doctors, because you're burnt out, and I believe me, I get it, are trusting the team to do more. Like, of course, you hire people to do it, but also I think you need to take time. We get so focused on seeing the patients and the production and everything, but you need to take time for training and meeting and things like that. This morning I had a call with a doctor who, is in the tail end of her career, like maybe 5-10 years she'll retire, right? So she's not looking to really grow more. She wants to maintain, but she also wants to shift her practice. Like she doesn't have an associate, so she knows she wants to get an associate in the next 12 months. She wants to start dropping PPO insurances in stream like that. She also wants to shift her focus. Like it's a bread and butter practice, but she's like, I want to do more cosmetic stuff. I want to do more sleep stuff. I want to do, more TMJ stuff, whatever it is, she knows she wants to shift her focus and hire somebody to complement her with the other dentistry. So what we're doing is spending a couple hours in a couple weeks, her and I, brainstorming everything that she wants to change in the next 12 to 18 months and then scheduling a team meeting and explaining to the staff what's going to be happening. Because some of you doctors are fantastic at planning and knowing what you want, but let's be honest, you're not the best at communicating it to your staff. And then all of a sudden you come in one day and you're like, oh yeah, we're going to start doing it this way. And you just expect them to understand and be on board. You have to present it to them. So this doctor is making a pretty big shift. So I said, it's going to be best for us to sit down with all of your team members. You have some younger team members and you have some team members that are a little bit older, have been in the industry for a long time. I want to present all of this to them and say, listen, we're really excited about this. We want you to be excited about it too. Here's the timeline in which we see it happening. We want all of you to be part of this. But if you don't want to, we completely understand. Now you have time to plan. Now you can have conversations with people and see where they're going to fit, if they're going to fit, versus this is what I decided. I'm not telling anybody. Poof, here's the meeting. Here's the change. I expect you to be on board. And then getting frustrated when they don't understand or they don't want to do it. So try to think of that. Like I feel like that's what's happening because doctors are burnt out. They're trying to search for answers, and you might have this epiphany over the weekend and decide to change everything on Monday, but realize like you have staff members that are juggling a lot of balls in your office, but also are going through a lot in their personal lives too.
Yeah, and I don't think you could have said that any better because I think I remind every dentist that I talk to is, you made it through dental school all by yourself. You made it through specialty all by yourself, which is all amazing, but without a team, you cannot be a successful practice owner. It just cannot happen. And so you have to have a buy-in from your team, and you have to get very creative about that, because at the same time, it's not going to be easy to do. I get it. But I think that's also a game changer in how successful you are as a leader and as a practice owner. Because, I'm sure so many people that are listening to this can reflect to that one person they had on their team that maybe just no longer with them. They're like, she was the key. I even, since my own business, I had somebody that worked with me. I'm always like, she helped me get where I am, because like the way she filled my void. And
Yeah.
I'm sure every doctor can remember that one person that did that for them. And so that should always be a good remembrance of how important your team is to you.
I definitely agree with you, Malika. And I can think of several people along the way in my business, or even when I was managing dental offices. Like, there are those key people. And I know doctors are frustrated. I know overhead is high. I know, like, you're going through a lot. But when you have that person, really dig down deep to see what you can do to retain them, because you know that they're good, right? You know what they're going to bring to the table. If they get another opportunity and they choose to leave for whatever reason, you're probably going to pay the new hire more, because that's just the demand that's out there, and you don't really know what you're getting.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of us focus on a budget for hiring versus a budget for retention. And again, I get it. I talk to doctors all the time, and the CPAs are telling them, like, your staff overhead is high. It's really high. You need to collect more. You need to cut staff. You need to do this. Like, I get it. I get it. But if you're going to make those adjustments, really analyze who you have on the team, and don't keep somebody that is mediocre because you're paying them less versus somebody that's a rock star and you're paying them a little bit more. That's a challenge. And I see time and time again doctors just letting people like that walk away. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. I know, I get it. I mean, we can even talk about the outsourcing. Some of you outsource, or should consider outsourcing, because that's kind of will keep your practice afloat, because you're going through transition. Someone's on maternity leave, someone has a health issue. What I see a lot is more of a panic of, oh my God, I lost somebody, but I haven't been able to replace them. What they don't realize is that without shuffling things around, especially admin team replacement remotely, is probably the easiest and the greatest thing you can do, especially when it comes to billing and verification,
Yes.
versus just dumping all that on somebody else that is doing a great job on treatment planning and greeting your patients. And then now you're putting all that, so then you're now burning them out. You're delaying, collections in your practice, where you could just funnel that to a third party to do that for you. Even some of my clients will plan to do it for a temporary fix, and I'm done. They're like, we're not ever changing it. It was the best thing we ever did. But I think a lot of this, we freeze, and we're like, oh my God, like this is like I'm losing someone amazing, but there's no solution in place. And then what happens, a lot of these staff that I work with, and they talk to me, they're like, my plate is so full, I just don't know what else to do. Where it says, okay, let's just outsource that for now, so that individual can shine in the position they have, versus just dumping more on them.
Exactly. And I actually have an office. It's an office in South Carolina, a smaller office, but she kept getting like weird and troublesome employees at the front. So she has a great office manager, but like that patient care coordinator, that person up at the front, the face of the practice, I don't know how many people we went through, and they were just wild. So we decided to outsource. Like, all the phone calls are outsourced. We have somebody handling, like, remotely reactivating patients, and we cross-trained the entire team. The hygienists, the assistants know how to check a patient in, know how to check a patient out. The office manager handles all the insurance claims because they're out of network, so there's not a ton of work that has to do that. They have a treatment coordinator that we kind of split things up, and like, the remote treatment coordinator handles treatment plans under a certain dollar amount, and the office manager and somebody in the office will handle treatment plans that are bigger. So now we've like maximized the team that we have there. We have the remote person who takes the phone calls off of their plate so they can focus on the patients that are in front of them, and they don't have to worry about vacations. They don't have to worry about, is it the right person up front, because like Malika said, the easiest position, I mean, unfortunately we can't outsource a dental assistant or outsource a hygienist or dentist at this point.
When
I know, but it is something to maybe take some of that pressure off of you. But buyer beware, if you have a remote employee, you still have to communicate with them. You still have to explain to them your procedures, your processes, make sure they're doing it right, because they're not somebody that's sitting next to you that you can just turn to and be like, "Hey, Malika, you did this wrong. Let's correct it next time," right? So you do have to have that constant communication with them. But I see more and more offices going that route because it's just a challenge. And again, you can't find the right staff. They just don't show up sometimes. They show up for half the day, they leave. Like, there's so many weird things happening. Having peace of mind that you have a person that's there all the time, getting your phone calls and, following up with your patients and taking care of stuff. It's nice. It takes a little bit of that weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, I have an office where there's nobody in the front desk. It's a computer, and at first when I heard about it, I was like, but it works for them. It's great. The patients love it. Obviously it has to be age oriented too. I say like this is obviously
Yeah.
an orthodontic practice and they can do that. Whereas I feel
Yes.
like if you're if your demographic of your patients are over age 50, you definitely need someone that could be there to give them the TLC they need. You have to make sure that
Yes.
your layout of what you have on your team fits the dynamic and the culture of your patients as well, because
Yeah.
your staff is your literally like your billboard. They are who your patients come to, so you want to make sure that there's a synergy there. But more and more, a lot of things are being done electronically, and it can work, but I cannot imagine my 80-year-old father, going into an office where there's a
Right.
robot talking to him or a computer talking to him. Like, it just won't work. He's not
Right.
gonna like it. So you guys just
Yeah.
have to keep those all in mind. And even like when you're half staff that you're hiring, the younger staff are amazing, but at the same time, are the verbiage that they're using fitting with the type of patients that you have? You want to make sure there's this energy there.
Well, that's so funny that you say that because it's a pediatric office. So, like, you've got younger patient demographic, whatever, but you want to have a professional staff. And I have this office, so it was a startup, right? So they had a core staff, and I always find the core staff with the startup are very protective of that office. So as the office grows, right, they want to make sure that you're bringing people in that fit the culture and are going to comply with your systems. Well, they recently hired because one of the dental assistants is going on maternity leave, so they know that they need another person. Plus, they're growing to the point when she comes back, they'll need this person as well. So they hired this person, and they were talking to me the other day, and they're like, Michelle, like, I don't know, she goes out partying on Friday nights, and then like every Saturday she comes in and just complains about how tired she is, and every time we ask her to do something, her answer is like bet, and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's that Gen Z, the way they
Mm,
talk about it. So I had a conversation with her and I was like, there's a lot of potential with you, but you have a big girl job now, right? You're not working at Burger King anymore. So like you committed to these hours and I understand you want to go out with your friends on Friday night, but you committed to working and you're in a pediatric practice. So like that I'm dragging personality mentality for the day is not going to cut it.
mm,
So either you tell your friends I can't go out Friday nights and you go out Saturday nights instead, or you figure out a way to drink some Red Bull before you come into the office to give yourself that energy. And then also think about, I get it, the parents, like, yeah, saying like bet to your friends might be fine. But, like the parents, you're still in a professional setting. So you still speak professionally to them. And I think a lot of this younger generation, they're having trouble adjusting to being in quote unquote big girl and big boy
yeah. Yeah.
jobs.
Where, you and I tell this all the time. I'm like, I used to be like, I committed to those hours. I have to show up. Even if my mom, I remember one time I told my mom, like, oh, all my friends are going to Kings
Yeah.
Dominion on a Saturday and I'm just going to call out. She like looked at me and sat me down and said, you made a commitment to that job. All my friends went, but I ended up, and I was not happy, obviously, but that was the infant structure to me that made me who I am. That's why I talk about the culture in the office or in the
Yeah.
home is what creates that structure so that your commitment is strong and it's there. Whereas in these days, I
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I'm just, and then they call out and they're all over social media, and you're like, okay, at least don't post anything on social media.
Right. Like at least when we were younger, if we did that, like we weren't gonna get caught. We're not on
Yeah,
the Coldplay cam,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
The Kiss cam at the Coldplay concert. We are like, but nowadays, like you can't get away with anything. Like
No.
social media,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're not even thinking.
No.
And it's just really challenging.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do as much research as I can on just like managing different generations and understanding. Like, fortunately for me, I have a Gen Z in my house. And I say to her all the time, you will not be the typical Gen Z. Trust me. Like she listens to me a lot and my frustrations with things, and I'm like, no, you're going to be the one that stands out, because there are still millennials and Gen Zs that will stand out and can be really, really great. I have some in my offices, and I tell those doctors, like, cultivate this, invest in this person, because like it's rare to find something like that
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah.
You
100%.
hope that you get somebody that's average and you can tip them to the better side.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So
It's a, as you
I
said, it's
know
a Wild
this.
Wild West.
It is. It really is. And I know this episode was kind of like all over the place. And it's like Malika and I have been dealing with a lot of questions from doctors and these types of situations in offices where sometimes I have to sit back because like my gut reaction, like obviously if someone's behaving in a certain way, this is funny. This isn't my story, but I had a colleague this morning, actually we were talking, a colleague of mine who said, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but like this blew my mind and this is how I'm going to end things. So just when you think your office is going through it the worst, this one is a good story. So she told me that a practice that she knows hired a dental assistant. The dental assistant was good for a little while, and then all of a sudden the person started like coming in a little bit late and was having some issues there. So they sat down and talked to her and said like, "Hey, what's going on?" She was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll work on it, right? And I'll get better." Well, that same day after patients left, that employee was in the bathroom. They heard like a crash in the bathroom, and they went to the bathroom, and like, she wasn't answering, so they broke down the door, and she was smoking crack in the bathroom and OD'd.
Gosh.
And like, so they Narcaned her, called emergency services, whatever. But like, what really got me was like, she called, like, after she was discharged from the hospital, called, was like, "Do you need me tomorrow?" And it was like, no, we don't need you
Oh my
anymore.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Like,
Never a dull
that's a wild
moment.
one. Oh, so like when you think like, oh my gosh, there's a lot happening in my office, like it's happening everywhere.
Oh
It
yeah.
doesn't matter the
You're
state,
not
it doesn't
alone.
matter the position. You're not like, it is just, it's wild. And like people are coming to us with things that I'm like, I'm a dental consultant. Like I didn't know that I'd have to, handle certain situations like this, but okay, let's figure it out together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's an interesting world right now. I mean, and hang in there. You just it's you're definitely everybody's going through something, and I always even remind the staff and remind the doctors everybody's got something at home. And what we need to focus on and remind our teams is that when they get to that office, they need to put whatever they have outside the door. It's hard. Some people cannot do it. They have a hard time. They carry it in. But I think the doctors sometimes even have a hard time with it. Sometimes when I observe an office, I have to remind the doctor that I could tell from the morning huddle that you were not yourself. And,
Mhm.
you're the lead and, it starts on the top. And if you can't have a good positive attitude, don't expect it from your team. So that,
Exactly.
and I get it. Sometimes you just have a hard morning, or you hear some bad news or sad news, or, you know, staff texts you at 6 a.m., quits on the spot, and you walk in and you're short staff. I mean, this stuff happens a lot lately, but you got to just take a
Yeah.
deep breath, do the best you can, because everybody's human. No one's perfect.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, our advice, take a deep breath, know that you're not alone. Malika and I are both here. We definitely go through it a lot with our existing clients, but if you're in a situation and you just need to vent because you might not have anybody else to vent to, like we're here as well to kind of help you navigate through some of these more challenging situations. Our contact information is always in the show notes. You can find us on social media. We're always around. So hopefully, like, you got a couple chuckles out of this and you can relate to some of the stuff we were talking about. And just most importantly, know like you're not alone in this. So until next time,
Yes.
have a great day.
Have a good day. That was fun.
Thank you for listening to Accelerate Your Dental Practice. To learn more about your hosts and explore consulting services tailored to your practice, visit affinitymanagement.co for Michelle Affato and zardentalconsulting.com for Malika Azargoon. Be sure to follow, rate, and share the podcast. And join us next time for more tools, tips, and strategies to help you accelerate your dental practice.